How did sports first come into your life? And what is it, what has that touchstone been for you throughout your career?
It started when I was very young. My family used to get together and watch Laker games, actually. So I was born and raised in Los Angeles and grew up here. And that was the moment where we would gather and catch up. And to be honest, I actually didn't grow up a football fan because we didn't watch football in our home. So throughout the course of my life, sports has played a role in the sense of forging memories of bringing family together. So it was a very different experience for us. I grew up with humble means, and so I never had the opportunity to actually go to a game when I was young. And so it was always from a screen, which, man, today that's what it is again, unfortunately. But I've always had this passion for what sports does in terms of bringing out that emotion. And in many respects, that really ties very closely with my passion in my career because I'm a brand builder at heart. And when you think about what brand building is, it's about developing that emotional connection with that product and whatever it is that you are marketing or creating a brand around. And sports has that incredible power to do so. Fast forward through my career where I have had the opportunity to play a role in startups to large global companies to private companies and public companies and having that range. I was fortunate to get a call one day. At the time I was in Hershey, Pennsylvania, working with a Hershey company, and the opportunity to kind of highlight and bring about what the brand is and always has been for the Los Angeles Rams and us coming back home and bringing that to the forefront for fans here in Los Angeles was just something I couldn't say no to. And so I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to say I am now a football fan.
Yeah, that's quite a journey. I mean, can you tell me some of the things that you have brought from your brand experience at places like Taco Bell and Visa and Hershey's? Some of those things that you've now brought to the Rams, that processes, ideas, cultural type things. What are some of the things that you've instilled upon the Rams from that background?
Yeah, my last 7 jobs didn't exist. So I've always stepped into a new role because a new strategy was created, or we needed to transform something, or we needed to move into a new direction, or identified white space within an organization and started something new. Well, when I came to the Rams, it was about how do you transform the organization and do what we do best, but doing it in a way that really centers on a brand. And so in thinking about that and working in all the other experiences I've had the good fortune to be able to bring those brand fundamentals to the organization and really operate in a little bit of a change management perspective with regard to how we go to market, and really building that foundation of what and who we are as a brand first, and then leveraging that narrative to then define how we go forward, how we engage our fans, how we engage our sponsors, and then ultimately how we bring that experience to life for our fans. So if you kind of fast forward to a real life example, we're opening up our new stadium. We just launched new uniforms. We have a whole new identity system. And as we walk into the start of our season, it's the start of the NFL season today, but our night football on Sunday against the Cowboys. And we think about that journey of what it is to create that experience for our fans. We really think about it of a story coming to life from the moment the fans hear from us Sunday morning to the moment they leave on Sunday night. Today, it's going to be with us virtually. But as we think about that whole experience and leveraging this modern new state-of-the-art stadium that is setting the standard for sports and entertainment globally, and leveraging the power of the technology in there, how do you create those moments to drive a narrative and fuel that energy? In many respects, it's almost like a brand conductor, right? Taking your fan, or in other verticals, your customer through a journey. We just get to do it over the course of a day for a football game. And we do that all season. But if I take that example some of the things that we've designed through our brand storytelling is the journey of how a fan will visually experience the game. And so InStadium, if they were there, they would see a touchdown in Q1 with a visual expression that drives energy and sound, but that would exponentially get hyped up and more intense and as we go into Q4. And that's something that's new and different that hasn't been done with other teams. So we've really designed it from a brand first perspective, and how do we bring our brand ethos to life? And it relates to what we do on and off the field.
That makes sense. We're excited to hear a little bit more about the stadium. We'll talk about it in a minute, but the pandemic has it's obviously impacted everyone's lives. We've got technology that we're dealing with constantly. It's something that's affected all of us personally and professionally. I'd love to before we get into the professional side, how have the last 6 months impacted you, and your family? I mean, what has that been like for you all?
Absolute sheer madness.
Amen.
I mean, that is the honest answer. I have 3 school-age kids, and obviously in this environment, living in Los Angeles, they're all doing virtual homeschooling. So I have a tween in middle school, and I have 2 elementary school students, one in the 5th grade and one in the 1st grade. And as you can imagine, juggling all of that for those of you that are parents, amidst launching a new brand, launching new uniforms, opening a new stadium, and oh, by the way, having to adjust everything you planned for the last 3 years in the last 6 months to be ready for these moments. I can't remember a moment where I felt like we've got this, right? It's always a state of where do we need to pivot? What do we need a parallel path? How do we get the organization aligned and rallied towards the same things? And oh, by here, from what's happening in society and having each and every time. So it has been a whirlwind, to say the least, but I feel very fortunate in that we have such a great team that we operate as a team, and we're able to with a singular purpose to make things work on the professional front. And then at home, I have a team at home, and that I have a really great family and relationship with my husband, where we balance everything out in order to make sure that not a lot of balls fall on the personal front.
Yeah, no, it's hard. On the business side, we've sort of had a mantra over the years, which is, so what now what, right? I mean, you just kind of have to move on and dust yourself off and say, so that thing happened to us. How do we move forward and not dwell in the past? And I assume, you've been working for years on opening up a stadium. I know what it's like to open up a stadium. I know, and I have a special empathy for what you all are going through now, having your pride and joy open this week, but yet not be able to show it off, right? And I know that that's hard. How have you, as an organization, be able to adapt to that, not just on the business side, but also on the social emotional impact that must be kind of rippling through your organization as well?
Yeah, I mean, the honest answer is there's highs and lows, right? Because this is such a special moment, one that, our owner has been envisioning for years. And for it to come to life without the fans who you're bringing it to life for is a little bittersweet. It's nice to see it happen, but you never want to do it without the people that you're doing it for. So it's challenging in that regard. And so there are moments where everyone's excited, we're doing this, and then it hits us. Wow, it's just us, right? And so you kind of have to balance those emotions because, like you said, it is what it is, and you have to move forward and you got to make the most of it. And part of the challenge of the last 6 months is how do you ensure you keep your team motivated? We have a very young staff. right? And we're blessed in that a young staff is incredibly energetic, wants to do things, has so many ideas, and they're action oriented and want to see things happen now. And in many respects, you have to do a lot of things now because of what's going on. But in many other respects, you can't, right? And so it's about saying that, like, what we're doing has greater purpose. You know, we always say that we have an incredible gift in the platform of football and the ability to bring and rally communities together because of that platform. And so, how do we focus on that despite some of the things that may be a little bit disappointing because we aren't able to do it in the way that we would want and be able to showcase and bring to life some of these experiences, but knowing that that day will come.
Yeah, I mean, for those of us who were working in sports back around September 11th, you know, I've had a lot of moments over the last 6 months where I've had similar feelings, you know, balancing, well, what are we doing? You know, why are we doing it? You know, and then you think about the fact that sports is so important for breaking down barriers in society, creating connectivity in multicultural communities, um, which obviously fits well into the theme here. And we have to forge ahead, and we have to forge ahead safely, right? That's the balance that we're all fighting every day. And I think the leagues have done a tremendous job of of uh, of keeping that balance in mind. And you know, I'm sure you guys talk about it a lot with your partners and your community leaders, about those things. So, um, when did you guys realize that you were likely to not have fans for at least this first game?
Realize or accept? I mean, I think that's a bit of a blur. Um, very long time in multiple scenarios, for a full stadium, for a partial stadium, and for obviously no fans. I really can't remember the exact moments with which we realized per se, but I think as it got closer and closer, some of that scenario planning started to hone in, and we really had to look at what was happening around us in Los Angeles and California and in our country and know that we had to do and be prepared for what was right and what was best for society as a whole. And so that's kind of where we went. I think one of the things that I'm really proud about this organization, and kind of as we think about the cornerstone of what this summit is about in cultural marketing, is how do we, you know, take what's happening and make the most of it, right? And so as an organization, we've always been a leader in the community. In fact, when we first moved here in 2016, one of the first things we did was actually sent our head of community to Los Angeles to really understand what are the needs of Los Angeles and how we as a football team can best help. And so I know there's so many things going on that have surfaced over the last few months around social justice, or rather social injustice. And that's actually been at the heart of what we've been doing since 2016. We've all at how do we address the long term, because we're here to stay. So we're not an organization about moments. We're an organization about platforms that enable others to thrive and enable others to be part of positive change in the right direction. So we've leaned into addressing some of those fundamental things over the years that maybe isn't as sexy, but is so critical to addressing some of these social injustices like poverty, educational inequities, community relations, especially police community relations. We've actually adopted a football team in Watts called the that was started by LAPD officers to help the kids around the positive a way out of some of the challenges that exist around their neighborhoods. And they were actually coached, mentored by police officers. And so it was one of those things where I think at first we were skeptical about the reality of this and what it meant. But when you see the kids saying hi as the officers drive by, something special there. And so that's something we've adopted. We've also adopted an Inglewood flag football team. So it's now the Inglewood Rams, which again is also mentored and coached by Inglewood Police. To help with regard to bringing Los Angeles and at SoFi Stadium, our new home, our new Rams house. And meal kits to families to address insecurities. In doing so, we provided about 70 pounds of food for each family, which feeds a family of 4 for a week. But those are types of things that isn't just of today. It's the things that we've been doing for the last few years, but really leveraging the moments that we have in bringing more light into what we're doing, and in doing so, rallying others to be part of it as well.
Yeah, I think that speaks well to something the previous speaker, Gil Gil Cuffey from Pepsi, had mentioned, that it's important to when you're working on cultural activities to think about what it means to add to the culture, not just you don't want to be seen as taking from it, right? You need to be authentic and be adding to that culture as well.
I think the internet connection's not very strong.
Yeah, no worries. I was just that that it's important to be authentic and make sure that you're adding to the culture. Yep. Okay, hopefully we're caught up now. Are we caught up?
I think we're caught up.
Okay, good. All right. Yeah, a little bit of lag there. Obviously the overall topic of cultural marketing fits so appropriately for an LA-based team. I mean, it's such a melting pot of so many different constituents that you have to serve. Obviously the team came back a few years ago after having left, a couple decades ago, and how have you guys been able to? I mean, in addition to some of the cultural things that you're talking about, right? The programs where you've been helping address some social change. What are some other ways that you guys have worked to integrate into the LA cultural landscape after so many years away?
Yeah, one of the things that we are very hypersensitive to and intentional about is connecting our communities and with our fans and communities in the most authentic way possible. And so as we think about that, there's a lot of elements that is expected in LA, right? As it relates to a different end of the spectrum around culture is being a trendsetter. But how do you do that in a way that is authentically LA? And so most recently, we launched a collab with Born and Raised. And so Born and Raised is very much of street culture, of lifestyle, and they are very LA born. We felt just fit well with who we are as a brand. And at the same time, audiences in the most authentic way possible, but in a way that is truly of LA. So that's one example. Another example is if you think about some of the rich history of Los Angeles, there is a huge Latinx population in Los Angeles. And in fact, very soon will be the majority minority. And one of the things that we think about is what are those natural ways that culture rises? And one of the big celebrations is Dia de los Muertos, which is Day of the Dead. And so, a couple of years ago, what we did was actually we put a Rams Sugar Skull shirt. We created a Ram Sugar Skull shirt, and we put it in the players' locker rooms. And what we did is we added a note that explained why Dia de los Muertos was so important to the Los Angeles community, what it was. And that's all we did. We started there. And the very next day, our players wore it on their way to an away game, and that caught fire on social media. And within minutes, there were knockoffs being sold, of these shirts. And we didn't sell them at the time because what we wanted to do was to make sure to shed a light of what was important in the most authentic way possible. Fast forward to now we're in the Dia de los Parade in Olvera Street. And, one of the big things that is part of this tradition is having an oferta, which is this place where folks can remember loved ones who have passed away. So rather than making it all about the Rams and putting, players or folks that are related who have passed away, we just created an altar with our colors and allowed folks to put the photos of their loved ones who had passed away. And so just being very sensitive to the way we allow culture to shine and allow culture to thrive. Our role is not to take that spotlight, but rather to leverage our platform to allow that spotlight to shine on where it should.
No, that's great. Again, it's all about being authentic, and I think you do an amazing job also building over time. It's not about single hits. What you talked about, just educating the players so that a year or 2 years down the road, when you're trying to do something authentic in that community, they understand all the rationale behind why you're doing it, as opposed to just doing it because the organization says to do it. So it's beautiful that you're doing it that way. We're going to go to questions in a minute or two here, but I did want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about the stadium. I know that it might be a game or two or more before you get to welcome fans in. So I just would love to hear just your thoughts. What are some of your favorite parts of the stadium that you can't wait for fans to experience? And B, are there any kind of LA cultural touch points in the stadium that you want to call out, things that you've done to make it feel like it's been, built for LA?
Thanks for that opportunity. You mentioned Built for LA. That is our season campaign for this year. And it's Built for LA, hashtag Rams House. And for those of you that don't know, Rams House is the affectionate moniker that our Rams fan family call one another. And so it's really great because what we're about when we talk about that campaign is saying, hey, our team is built for LA, built for greatness, built to bring that championship back to LA, built for the betterment of LA. But man, so is this building, right? This great new stadium that our owner, Mr. Kroenke, has invested billions of dollars in to bring to life, to set this standard for sports and entertainment. And then how our community of fans are all part of us and part of that Rams House family. We're all built for LA. I think as we look at that and we lean into the stadium, one of the amazing things about that is it is the only indoor-outdoor stadium in the world. And so there are actually no walls all around. They're columns. And so you kind of walk in and you get to experience all that great weather that we have in Los Angeles. We have an ETFE roof, which is kind of this transparent roof. And so what that does is it allows the sunshine to come in. So you get to enjoy the sunshine without all the elements. I know it rains about 5 days a year in Los Angeles. So for those 5 days, if it is game day, you will be protected. But you get the nice air breeze coming through. When you walk in, you actually go down 100 feet to some of the seats as well as go up. So when you walk in, you actually have a stadium of our beautiful double-sided video board. It's 120 yards long, 4 stories high at its highest point, and then 2 stories high at its lowest. It is double-sided, and it goes in a full 360 motion. There's nothing like it in the world. It has over, I think, 80,000 pixels, but it is incredible. The ability to create a show and experience where anywhere in any seat in the house, you can see some element of that board, either the front or the back or both, and to create that dynamic experience and what you can drive with that is pretty spectacular. Again, nothing like it in the world. And anyone that's ever stepped foot in the stadium or had the good fortune of is just in awe. And I think that's probably what I'm most excited about, because the ability to bring that to life in a very meaningful way allows us a technological canvas that no one else has that we get to play with and bring that brand to life.
Yeah, for sure. It's a marketer's dream, right? So it'll be exciting to see you be able to paint on that canvas someday. And hopefully we'll be able to catch glimpses of it on TV on Sunday.
Well, if you'd like, I would say you can text Rams House to Go Rams, and you can access our 360 AR portal. It'll launch in a couple of days, and you'll be able to play around and experience the stadium in 360 on your own terms. So have fun.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, so I think we have time for a question or two here before Nina jumps in. Here's a question. Working from home and distancing have altered consumer media and digital habits in many ways. What are you seeing when it comes to those types of behavioral changes, and how are you adapting to that?
I mean, ultimately, we're talking about how do we bring the stadium experience to our fans, right? So I alluded to kind of this 360 AR portal. We're doing a second screen experience for our season ticket member fans. We're doing engaging opportunities with our fans, like our Pick'em, which we just launched, where fans can bet, right, virtually on different elements of what's going to happen with the game, and then we'll reward them. So we're thinking about different ways to engage fans via the digital world and via second screen throughout the season. But hopefully we'll be in a good place post where we'll start to be able to engage them live again. The thing about that too, though, is because of how long this has affected us, consumer expectations and behaviors are fundamentally changing, not from a transitory sense, but actually in a more permanent sense. And so I think as marketers, we're going to have to think about that consumer journey more so in this way and have almost parallel paths, at least for us in sports, of what it means, because there's going to be a lot of fans that are just going to stay in that vein and expect to engage with us in that vein. So we're going to have to be able to provide that in-game experience that is something you can't compare, but also for those who are expecting different or now behaving different on a more permanent basis, making sure that we're prepared to engage them in that way as well.
Yeah, makes sense. So there's a question here about partnerships. They're asking a question about partnerships that didn't work out, but I know that that's kind of a touchy subject, so I'm going to spin it a little bit, right? Which is, can you talk a little bit about a partnership where you worked closely with the brand to adjust the initiative so that you were ultimately hitting the objectives that they were seeking?
Yeah, absolutely. I can talk about quite a few, but one is Nike, right? So Nike has been a good partner of ours for quite some time. Obviously, in this world where we're not bringing our fans to the stadium, what we're doing for home opener and Sunday Night Football is they're actually doing 100 by 100-foot mural on our parking lot, right? And it'll have Aaron Donald, and it'll be featuring him and his contribution with our Watts Rams, which I talked about earlier, but it'll start their campaign for the season. And what's great about that is because of where we're located, it's right under the flight path for LAX. So you have over 3,000 planes coming in day in to see that. So that's a great way we've adapted. Another one is Pepsi. So Pepsi is all about entertainment. But, in this world, entertainment looks a little different. So we worked with them. We shot a music video with J-Rock, and they got to showcase the different elements of the stadium in a very entertaining way, in a very LA way, and also have him perform. We pre-recorded that, and that'll be shown before the game as a pre-game entertainment. So those are some examples. There are numerous examples, but I think what's been great is because we've actually had very good partnerships and worked in collaboration where it's not like a handed over type of partnership. We've been able to work together and creatively solve for our needs.
Yeah, no, that's it's important whenever you're building partnerships. It has to be and there has to be a certain amount of give and take and understanding and flexibility and quite frankly honesty, right, about what's happening and what can be done to to keep those objectives in mind. And if you have to adjust the program, do it with a sense of empathy as opposed to just sitting here and say, well, I'm sorry, this is what the contract says, so this is what we're going to do. I've been on both sides of that equation in the past. It's it can be hard. One more question I had. So obviously, in today's world, technology creates a lot more opportunities for brands to do personalization in a massive way, right? Really mass personalization as opposed to probably the labor intensive customization we had to do 10 or 15 years ago. What are some of the ways that the Rams are using technology to do that?
Oh wow, there's a ton, but I think one interesting one and very relevant is obviously because we can't have our fans there. It's almost like technology meets physical. We will have some cardboard cutouts of our fans for the game, and all of that goes to support our foundation, to support some of the work that I talked about earlier. But one of the interesting things is how do you leverage technology? And so, being able to feature the fan in their seats and then also being able to send the fan the view from their seats of where their cardboard cutout is something that we're doing. You kind of play with the physical and the virtual. So that's like a fun way. Obviously, throughout the game, we'll be doing live social media feeds of our fans cheering the folks on the beautiful video board. We're working with the NFL, so on Sunday Night Football, we're going to have this thing on the end zone. So when the players score a touchdown, they can do a cheer and send it out to our fans, and our fans can engage with them. So there's a lot of different ways that we've been able to play with that we're super excited about. I mean, and as a marketer, you have to know how to adapt and deal with what you're thrown with and make it creative and make it impactful and tell a story. And that's part of the fun about being a marketer.
That's great. Well, I see Nina's back, so I think that means our time is up. But
it is, but I think that was the perfect way to end there.
Thank you, Ronalee.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you both so much. And it's exciting to see how you're innovating with the upcoming season. Obviously, it's going to look a lot of opportunities that come with that. So thank you both. We're now moving on to our last session of the day. We're joined by Ursula Ringham, the head of global influencer marketing at SAP. Ursula is an innovative leader in influencer marketing, social media, live video, and digital marketing. She's an early adopter in utilizing the latest technologies to generate awareness and to build community. Good storytelling is at the core of everything she does. She previously worked at Adobe and Apple in their developer relations organizations, helping companies bring products to market. This session will be moderated